Today is Labor Day, and the title of tonight's message is Labor, and Love, or Don't Blame the Baby. What does that mean? I've spoken many times about the fact that you are bringing yourself forth as a child, a new being. You are becoming as a child, you are beginning anew, you are rediscovering yourself, you are just now tottering on the outside of the womb. Well, the analogy between your rebirth and the physical birth of a child has some value, but some limitations also. For one thing, the birth of the child is a lot quicker. The rebirth is more gradual. You are on the outside of the womb, it's true, and gasping in those first few breaths, and quite discombobulated by the whole birth process. It is only going to be gradually that you find your balance, that you locate yourself in time and space, and that you begin in a more conscious way to pursue your work, your passion, the object of this journey. In the meantime, you must be very, very kind to that new life, to that new child. When the child messes its diapers, you don't blame the child. When the child learns to stand and keeps falling, you don't blame the baby. When the baby attempts to walk and stumbles, you don't blame the baby. You are in awe, rather, that the baby can walk at all. And that's the feeling you need to have about yourselves. The awe that you have come through this birth process. The awe that you are now capable of embracing personal wholeness. The awe that this world that is so confusing to you is a world without fear. The time in the womb and all the terrible memories of the life before the womb in this life take time to fade. You are so new, so different, so enhanced, so enlightened that you cannot even recognize it. Does that sound like a conundrum? It's because it's in the same old package. Now, you may feel physically a bit better. I'd be surprised if on the whole that you didn't than you have in earlier times in your life. But basically, you're looking at the same person in the mirror. More often than not, you're living in the same sort of environment, and you haven't completely changed your wardrobe, and there's a whole lot that reminds you of you. And what is new is so new, so unheard of, so unexperienced, that you don't know what the hell it is. You feel different, but you're not quite sure what that feeling means. It's not what you'd sort of half expected and half hoped for, this constant pink glow of well-being and peace with all humankind. And that's a bit disappointing, but yet you are conscious that there's something different here. There's something enhanced. At first you think, well, this isn't fair. There's still rain falling on my parade. I didn't expect that. But yet the wonderful thing is that the rain doesn't spoil the parade. that now you can deal with the various slings and arrows that come your way without panic, without depression, maybe not with any great joy, but with a sort of matter-of-fact quality of just taking care of what is. Well, my goodness, if that isn't a miracle, your life is truly becoming miraculous. But it's subtle. The new talents, the new perspective, the new abilities, they take some time to manifest themselves and for you to recognize them and for you to encourage them. When the baby first tries to learn to express himself in words, all that comes out is a babble and a gabble, sounds, incipient word shapes, but nothing you can really understand. And the baby sees that he's not getting through to you. So he listens a little more closely. And he says, well, that gabble that's coming from her sounds a little bit different than my gabble, so I'll change my gabble a little bit. And so the baby gradually comes closer to making himself understood by gradually recognizing his input and being able to transform it into output. The baby doesn't really understand much of what you say. Baby's like a dog or a cat at first. They'll recognize their name and a few simple commands that are repeated often enough. But you can talk your head off to the baby as one does, and the baby is happy that you're talking to him, but doesn't have the vaguest idea what you're talking about. It doesn't have the concepts, it doesn't have the experience. And so that process of learning to speak is also and foremost a process of learning to hear, to be aware. And that's what you need to cultivate also. If you want to manifest all that you are now, you have to listen to yourself. You have to be your own teacher, the attentive pupil and the wise teacher. Well, that wise teacher is inside of you, and that's the Spirit. It's the Christ energy made manifest in you that is beginning to be experienced and assimilated by the whole self. The ego self, the thinking mind, needs to pay attention to the wisdom of the Spirit so that that ego self can begin to express all of that new power and new ability that is coming by way of the Spirit's involvement in life. But the ego self, being cut off from the Spirit, doesn't know what the Spirit's talking about, doesn't understand the language that is so subtle and so intuitional, so spontaneous, so unthought out, so unanalyzed. It takes you, and you, for all intents and purposes, are the ego you. It takes you a while, as it does the baby, to understand the language that is being spoken at you so that you can finally learn it yourself, so that you are finally hearing the voice of the Spirit clear and enacting it clearly. You're going to learn to do this during the course of this life. This life is going to encompass your infancy, your babyhood. Maybe if you live long enough, you'll become a toddler. But that means the next life, you're going to come in complete, whole. This is the bridge life. This is the most singular life you have ever or will ever live. The life of change, fundamental, deep-set, eternal change. The third and final evolutionary step of the human being. into the triune being. Whole, body, mind, spirit, one. And so the labor of this birth is well worth the pain. You are giving birth to yourself, so you feel that pain of birth as the mother does. And you also feel that discombobulation, that confusion upon being born that the baby does. You get a double helping. But you also feel the pride and the joy of the parent and the awe and wonder and delight of the fresh-born babe. And for you to fully experience the wonderful joy of the process that you are in, you need to be infinitely kind to that baby that is yourself. Recognizing that you are feeling your way in a world new to you, that you are exploring a self unknown to you, that you are developing new senses previously unfelt. It is a great job. It is a great labor. But it is a labor of love and a labor of joy, with the parental delight of each new stage of that developing child, and the pride of the child in his increasing mastery of this new world of wonders. That is the labor of birth that you are undergoing. Now, how does this affect your day-to-day life? You're living in a world in transition. My goodness, look around you and see, as we said years ago, watch for the unbelievable. And you're seeing it all around you now. The world is in a tremendous paroxysm of death and rebirth at every stage throughout the planet, and including the planet. And so it's a time where everything is topsy-turvy and set on its end. It's hard to keep your balance and hard to really follow everything that's going on. But what a wonderful time. It's a wonderful time if you understand who you are, what's going on, what it means. What it means to be able to live in faith, not with that desperate anxiety that so often is covered with a thin overlay of faith, which says, I believe, I have absolute faith that I'm going to work all this out, that the rent will be here on time, but God, I hope it's right away, and I hope it's soon, and that's better than no faith at all, but it's not much fun. This is the faith that doesn't even have to talk about itself. This is the faith that knows that the rent will be there, the car payment will be there, that whatever you need will be there when you need it. Maybe not a moment before, maybe even stretching the moment when you need it, but always will be there. That this bargain with the universe is not an abstract. You and God have shaken hands, and if God's word isn't good, then you're in deep, deep trouble. Because you're doing your part. And don't look at that baby self and say, well, I sure fall down a lot. But what a wonderful thing that you can stand at all. Well, I sure stumble a lot, but what a joy that you can walk. Well, I still babble a lot. But how exciting that you're learning to communicate. See yourselves in these terms, and you're going to be a lot gentler with yourself and enjoy this unfolding, this blossoming, because you're safe. If safety matters to you, you're safe. You know that nothing will come into your life that isn't a part of the plan that you have agreed on, that you have desired. Now, it's true that everyone can say that if they could see it, and that might include some pretty terrible things from a human point of view. But those terrible things are all calculated to arouse fear. In the contemplation of them, in the memory of them, the anticipation of them, the experience of them. Fear, 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 fear. And the experience of them is the tiniest amount. Most of fear is in anticipation. You don't have to go through that anymore. So what does that imply? If you believe Plautus, saying you've really worked through most of your fears, that they're tag ends here and there, because it's a process and not an event, but you're gradually beginning to recognize that you're not afraid anymore. It doesn't feel like what you thought it might feel like, but it's true nonetheless. This is happening. That's going to make an enormous difference in your life with the more and more confidence that you get. You have fulfilled your part of the bargain. You have gone through the valley of the shadow of fear, and you've come out the other side, and you're beginning to learn the ways of this new internal and external world. And you must recognize that the bargain is sealed. You are not on earth to sit back and take it easy and everything be a vacation. That isn't why you came. There are some that do vacation lives on earth, but they're always the smallest minority. No, this is a life of serious business. This is a life of work. But the serious business, more and more people today don't like their work. They can't stand it. It's boring. It's repetitive. Only part of it is the money that doesn't pay enough. It's mostly because it's just not satisfying. Well, people didn't used to think in terms, most people didn't used to think in terms of being satisfied by their work. Their work was just a necessary evil in order to get money. Well, it's still a necessary evil, but now it's not accepted, saying, well, that's the way life is. Now people are looking, because the consciousness is changing, and saying, whoa, wait a minute. This job that I do is utterly meaningless. Now, those like yourselves, and there are more and more, who are coming out the other side of a process that they may have named other names, are nonetheless also the inheritors of this wider, deeper consciousness, this wider, deeper awareness, this accelerated, enhanced life. And suddenly putting widgets together is not a task for a human being. And whether you are putting your widgets together at a real estate office or an advertising agency or in a factory or in a restaurant or wherever you may be doing that, if all you're doing is putting widgets together, you will not be happy. Now, this brings me to my second point. Labor as work. Your labors now must be works of joy. Must be. No options. I've said to you, this is a time of dreams come true. Well, that's how lovely that sounds. But I haven't added until now, and there are no options. You will make your dreams come true, because you won't let yourself rest. You will not be happy. You will not be satisfied. You will not be proud of yourself. You will be the baby that refuses to learn to walk or to talk. And you can't do that. And so there are going to be acts of courage and faith that will be needed to make the changes in your life necessary, vital changes, in order that your life may reward you and you reward it. If you are earning your living at something that you regard as essentially meaningless, or perhaps even a negative process, you can't do it. I'm going to tell you that straight out. You can stall and you can wait and you can hang back. You'll just prolong the misery. You'd better start looking now for something that is more harmonious to you, that you can say, I take pride in doing what I'm doing. It doesn't have to be any big highfalutin thing, but it has to be something that is balm to your soul, that you feel and experience as worthwhile. And I say to you, money cannot, will not be the primary motivation. And even if you think, well, it's not my primary motivation now, nonetheless, you think, well, I have to have, of course, the security of knowing that the paycheck is coming in and it's going to cover rent and food and insurance and car payment and whatever else. And I say to you, you're going to have to take that list and tear it up and throw it away. That you are not going to be able to use what you believe to be vital minimums. Now, does that mean I'm saying, well, that means I have to live a life of poverty? Of terrible uncertainty? That I have to go through bankruptcy as well as everything else? Not at all. Not at all. In fact, in all likelihood, you're going to do better than you've ever done before in your life. Because, again, you won't be operating out of fear. You're going to be operating out of faith. You're going to, in effect, say to God, however you picture God, in effect, you're going to be saying to God, I know I'm doing my part, and I feel really good about that, and I know you're doing your part. And here's what I want. Everything I need. Fill in the blanks. You don't need to itemize. God knows what you want and what you need better than you do. And you may find out that what you wanted and what you needed are way different things. You may be surprised any number of ways. And as I say, it may be right down to the 11th hour when you say, well, I don't know where this money is coming from. And it'll be there. Don't question it. And pretty soon you won't sweat it. Now, I'm focusing on finances because, of course, that's most people's first concern, admit it or not. Nobody wants to be wandering on the street pushing a supermarket basket full of your belongings. But you won't. You are of value. The gifts that you give to this process of love triumphant, in whatever way you give them, are too highly valued. There is reward in this process, in this journey. You know, you get sort of conditioned in the first and most difficult part of the spiritual journey, where you are in the process of giving up fears and giving up this and giving up that and letting go of this and recognizing gradually and painfully that this ain't the deal you thought it was going to be. Worth it, yes, but quite a different story. It's not all giving up. It's not all pain. It's not all surrender. Once you've gone through that process, once you have truly surrendered, and surrender is not defeat, you're surrendering to victory. And once you have surrendered to victory, everything gets much improved. The other side of the bargain clicks in. Well, it's clicked in all along, but you didn't notice it because what you needed wasn't what you wanted. And God and the universe were giving you what you needed. But finally, as you go through that process, maybe reluctantly, you say, well, all right, I did need that. I didn't like it. But I did need that, and I suppose I wouldn't have missed it. I'm glad I didn't miss it. It's all attitude change. It's understanding. It's wisdom. It's growing into yourself. And so now, collect. It's paycheck time. Now, I've said to you, there are so many benefits in this employment plan. There are the benefits of the best kind of health insurance of all. And that's control over your own health. There are bonuses and there are vacations. Liberal vacations. Take as much time as you want. Because it's a relationship of perfect trust. You can trust yourself to take as much time off as you think you need. You don't have to feel guilty and say, well, I'm sure shirking. I bet God's really pissed off. You can't separate yourself from God anymore. There's no boss. You've taken responsibility for your life and become the boss. It's a partnership. But it's a 50-50 partnership. God isn't going to muscle you into submission. God isn't going to blame the baby when he stumbles. You need to think enough of yourself and what you've gone through and your wonderful spirit and your wonderful courage and your growing compassion and understanding to say, I'll take it. I'll take the pay. Don't be shy. Don't say, well, I'll wait for the check in the mail. I'm sure it's in the mail. Go boldly into what you want to do, what is closest to your heart, and trust. You won't be let down. Never be let down. And you can trust yourself to choose among your choices wisely and well, with intrinsic understanding of the nature of your own abilities, of your own gift. When an opportunity comes, you'll be able to glance at it and know if it's for you. Now, some of you may say, well, I'm not really trained for anything else, and this job that I have isn't that bad, and I'm not suffering going to work. I even enjoy it some days, and I've worked my way up, and the money's okay. Well, I'm not saying you have to quit your job. If your job is conflicting with your joy, yes. But you can scratch the itch by volunteer work, by giving of your time and your essence in other ways. There's no lockstep here that you have to do this, you have to do this. What I'm saying to you is, if you are wasting your time and claiming pain as your pay, cut it out. It's only going to get worse until you get the message. And that's not, all right, jobs. I've been talking about jobs because it's Labor Day. But it's also the jobs that you get involved with other people. And if your relationship with the neighbor, if your relationship with your brother or your sister or your parent, if the relationship with your lover is bringing you pain and not gain, if you have, and you will recognize whether you've done your best, not perfectly, but done your best to bring peace to the relationship, but it ain't growing, cut it off. Walk away from it. Thanks, but no thanks. You're going to find, and it'll probably shake you up at first, you're going to find, my goodness, what a ruthless fellow I've become. What a ruthless woman I've become. Because you're going to see so much clearly. You're not going to be lying to yourself. You're not going to be saying, well, it's really more important I don't hurt this person's feelings. I guess I can put up with it a little bit longer, and I, for heaven's sakes, don't want them to think that I'm some terrible person. And what would the neighbors say, and what would mom say, and what would anyone say? That doesn't matter to you anymore, and you think, why on earth did that ever matter to me? And so you don't operate within those parameters. You can look at a situation and a relationship and see it very clearly. You may not even want to see it as clearly as you do. But you can look at it and say, this isn't working, and it's not likely to work. This ain't growing corn. It's not bringing pleasure and joy in the giving or the receiving. Why is it cluttering my life and my time? And because there is no anger and rage in you, you're not going to curse the person and say, fie out of my life, I don't want you anymore. You're going to disengage. You're going to be firm, you're going to be clear, and you're not going to apologize. And you're not going to feel guilty. Big order. But no order at all. It's who you're becoming. Someone who is capable of really taking care of themselves. All that love and compassion and understanding in you is going to find plenty of ways to use it. Instead of wasting it on people that don't appreciate it, don't want it, don't understand it. There's going to be lots of changes in your friendships and relationships as they balance with who you're becoming. This doesn't fit anymore. Bye. Very unsentimental. Sentiment is how we cloud difficult decisions to make them seem sweet and lovely. You don't do anyone a favor by remaining in unequal relationships. You're what they call now an enabler. Well, this person is really a jerk. But if I don't put up with him, who will? Well, he needs everyone not to put up with him. So he gets the message. Labor and love. When you love what you're doing, when you love the choices you've made, when you know you're acting out of your own enlightened self-interest, and that interest includes all who you love and all that you love, you're going to feel joy in your life. When you sweep out the last remnants of guilt, you're going to feel joy in its place. Guilt is fear that you're not deserving and yet taking. Joy is accepting the gift freely given with a smile. In the midst of all of the apparent disaster, disease, starvation that's going on in the world, that's accelerating in the world, you are going to be discovering the cornucopia of earth, of life as a human being. You will see what's going on. You're not going to be blind to anything, but you'll see with eyes of understanding and compassion. Recognizing with God's wisdom that the process requires the plowing up of dead fields, the destruction of outworn ideas, the disillusion of creeds and customs no longer of value, the dissolving of a financial structure built on inequity. And you're going to be enjoying the bargain well kept. That's not selfish. You've paid your dues. And you're going to be giving of your plenty. All along I've said, those people that spread love all over and don't have any to spare for themselves aren't really giving anything. You can't give from an empty bucket. See yourselves as that triumphant child, a difficult birth, but a victorious, healthy birth. Appreciate the child's struggle to grow, to become. Love all of your labor. You've been given a gift. And you've looked at the package and you've shaken it and you've sniffed it and tried to ascertain what was in, and now you're opening the package. And you're going to open it up. You say, what the hell is that? Try it on. Try yourself out. Don't be shy. Don't be hesitant. Be bold. Reach beyond your grasp. Trust that you have the ability to leap tall buildings at a single bound. You won't discover the magic of who you are without that courage to reach beyond where you've ever reached before. To remember that handshake that sealed the bargain. The laborer is worthy of his hire. You've given an honest day's work, and you're going to get an honest day's wages in every coin of the realm. It's a bargain, it's not charity. You deserve it, you've earned it. Enjoy it. Now I open for questioning.
Well, Plautus, I took a risk yesterday. I called my friend Clover, who I haven't seen in almost a year because I broke off our friendship. And she was really shocked when I called. And she said that she needed a week to get back to me, to tell me, because I told her the reason why I called her was to reconnect with her. And she said that she thought that she would like to get together with me, but that she wasn't sure.
Well, I'll answer the implied question. What you're doing is experimenting, and this is exactly what I've been encouraging. As you develop your boundaries and as you decide with greater understanding what you need and what you don't need, what you want, what you don't want, you need to try these things out. You don't know for sure, even on your end, how you want this to turn out or whether it's going to turn out. But you've made that move, that initial move. You've taken that responsibility on yourself. You've taken that risk, as you say, and so do not take responsibility for the response. It doesn't matter in your interest. It doesn't matter how she responds. Whether she thinks it over and says, no, I don't want to risk that, I don't want to try that, blah, 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 blah. Or whether she says, well, all right, I'll respond to that opening. It really doesn't matter because you know that only what you truly desire is going to come out of this. Whether it's a final clearing away of that which no longer fits, or the rebirth of something you've grown into. I can't tell you, no, I'll be more honest, I won't tell you how that's going to turn out, but that you will be clear on it within a week to 10 days. And you will be comfortable with the outcome.
Yeah, I have that sense too, even though I feel nervous.
Well, yes, you've made the first move, and you want to wait and see if there is a second move.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Plautus, could you tell me anything about a recent person I have met recently named Jim?
He's a slippery customer. Hard to pin down, hard to get a hold on. He's evasive, elusive. Doesn't make him a bad person. Makes him a frightened person, a defensive person. There's a very sweet spirit there. But a difficult individual to get a grasp on. And I'm going to say that a month from now, you'll have all the answer that you need regarding this individual. Go ahead and follow that up if you want.
Plautus, do you have any messages for my friend Judy?
Quit being so reluctant. Don't be blocked. Plow right through. Don't go around, don't go up and over. Go right through the middle of the situation in front of you. It's not as dark and threatening as it seems to be. It's like standing at the edge of a woods and thinking, oh, I'm afraid to go in that woods, I might get lost. And then marching bravely in, discovering the woods is only about half a block deep. See?
Do you have anything to say about my plans to go back to England?
Yes, hallelujah. That's enough, isn't it?
Sounds good.
It's very much in line with, it's an appropriate adventuring for you. It's a homecoming. it looks like a very joyous experience. I can't say that I see any negative in it at all. And the image that I see is, in terms of your own attitude, is go there as though you were Robin Hood, and brave and adventurous and humorous, and visit the myth, because there's more than one level of reality that you are going to be experiencing in this. The immediate, but the mythic also, that which is a part of the past that has formed you.
In a recent reading that I had with you, you encouraged me to go to Atlanta to this conference, and I started finding out about it, but there's so many irons in the fire right now, and I'd like to know if you can give me any more about that.
Up the stakes. Give you more reason to go?
Or less, I don't know. Well, I mean, is it just something that would be healthy because...
It's not vital. It's definitely optional. In other words, you won't be missing anything unmissable if you decide against it. It has every earmark of being a positive, expanding experience, but it's definitely for you to choose. Don't say I can go and it'll be great, but there is this, and I'm here to make choices. So make the choice that makes the greatest sense to you.
Plautus, do you have any advice for me in my teaching?
Don't put a gag on. Don't censor yourself. Don't be bound by past patterns. Feel very, very free to experiment. Feel free to say that which you may have hesitated to say. The world is changing. The reality is changing. The consciousness is changing, and changing so rapidly that continuity is disrupted. You need to be willing to be flexible beyond previous definitions, because there is a generation that is no longer all of one thing, but not much of the other. There's a generation that doesn't know what it wants to respond to, but knows that it doesn't respond to the linear structures of the past. Trust your instincts and don't censor yourself.
Bridge life? Is this the bridge life for everyone?
No, it's not a bridge. Well, in a sense it is. There's a lot of people going to fall off the bridge. But it's a bridge generation. It's a bridge life, certainly for those who, in whatever form, have taken up the spiritual challenge of the death-rebirth process, of rediscovering themselves, of renewal. It goes under a lot of different names. And it's a bridge, then, because you come into the world with one consciousness, and the inheritor of your karma that you've picked up life after life, you're here to graduate. Well, you don't graduate often in a lifetime. And this graduation, then, bridges the old consciousness and the new. And in the course of this life, your personal transformation takes you across that bridge. And it is unique in that the change of consciousness takes place within one life in which you become a new person. And so there's a lot of unlearning to do and a lot of releasing to do, because you don't have the amnesia that you can count on between lives. You know, when you're born, physically born into a new life, by the time you exit the womb, you've pretty much forgotten who you are, so that you can start fresh, or as fresh as the rule of karma will allow. But here you're transforming yourself within one life. It's also a bridge in a more universal sense, in that it is the demarcation, this generation and the next, the demarcation as much as between Neanderthal and Cro-Magnon man. It is the demarcation between the thinking man and the whole human being. So it is an evolutionary, it is the changing of an evolutionary epoch. It is the end of a millennium and another kind of bridge, all of the bridges relating to each other. But it is the end of a certain kind of consciousness, the Piscean consciousness. The Piscean consciousness, for those of you unfamiliar with astrology, has to do with self-sacrifice, has to do with the Christian image, well, the early Christian symbol of the fish, Piscean sign. The 2,000 years of Piscean history now come to a close, and with it the energy that motivated the Christ and the message of Christ and the experiencing of the sacrifice and so forth that is of Pisces and that has been of these past 2,000 years. And the new consciousness, the Aquarian consciousness, is quite different from the Piscean. And so you are bridging also, this generation, bridging into one consciousness from another.
I've been having lots of car problems this summer, and it seems to be culminating this last week with all of the cars in our family having major problems. But, I'm wondering, what's going on, and is it going to end soon? Can you comment on that?
Yes, our as human beings, our cars, and as Americans certainly, our cars are very much symbols of ourselves, expressions of our ego, and they serve many purposes. They are also, as a race, the car is one of the early attempts of humankind to play God and to create life, and with indifferent success. But nonetheless, it is that emulation, and a kind of life is created. These, when you understand that all matter is energy, and you may think, well, metal is dead and it's all a mechanical thing. Well, you could look at the body as being all a mechanical thing, too. True, an automobile is not biologic, but it is the creation of life, and where there is an interplay of fairly sophisticated energies, a primitive kind of life does arise. And many people, just sort of instinctively relate to their cars as they would to their pets, and name them and talk to them and have either an adversarial or buddy relationship with them, and they might be a little embarrassed about it, but really treat them as if they have personalities. And many people will say, well, my car certainly does have a personality. And in fact, that is the case. It's not just whimsy. There is life created there, and your energy mingles with the energy of the automobile, and the automobile serves many purposes in your life, of which transportation is only one. When you are in a period of difficult change yourself, you are feeling that stress and experiencing that stress. And that stress will communicate itself to your automobile. It's for one thing, if you get down on a car, you say, well, this car is just a hunk of junk, and you give it a kick, and you say sour things to it. Well, sure as hell, that car is going to fall apart right under you, because it's going to say, oh, you're right, I'm just worthless, and prove it. As you do, when you're convinced of that. So on the one level, we have that sort of sympathetic effect. If you have a cat or a dog, often they'll also be upset if the family is upset, if there's stress going on. And so your car isn't too much different from that. Further, there is... would somebody answer the door? Further, there's the whole question that relates to the energy of the time, which is transient, the energy of the passages of life. And so here we have tremendous energies being focused on Earth at this time that you're feeling, that you're experiencing in different ways, depending upon what you're dealing with and so forth, but that can all be loosely grouped under the title crisis. And some of these disruptive energies are also going to affect machinery. And some of these energies, such as, let's call them astrologic energies, planetary energies, star energies, and so forth, sometimes they go through a rough patch. And that's going on. So I wouldn't read this as taking it too personally. Yes, part of it's personal, but I wouldn't take it too personally, because it is also a part of simply what's taking place among many on Earth. And will it last long? No, it should be this by the end of the month. You can generally sort of expect things to chug along a little better.
I have a question about my daughter Mary Nelson and her husband Keith. They're sort of feeling like they should move to Oregon, and wanted me to ask you if that looks like a good move for them.
Moving to Oregon, did you say?
Yeah.
And what are their names again?
Keith Nelson and Mary Nelson.
Well, it looks like a mixed picture. It looks fine when they're settled in, but it looks like maybe a rough patch getting there. I wouldn't say that's not a good goal, but to accept that it may not be as smooth as a superhighway making the transition. I think also they're going, is this anything they need to decide on quickly?
I don't think so.
Because I think they're going to be clearer on their own motivations and the inherent opportunities by early to mid-October.
I have a question relating to work. I've now got 2 computers in my life, and I haven't done anything. I just can't seem to get...
Relationship troubles, then.
Those 2, but anyways.
Well, computers about as close as you've come to the creation of life. And computers, above all, have very definite personalities.
I'd really like to get going with these computers, and I just don't seem to...
Don't press. This is really probably the worst time of the year for you to be heavily involved with computers. But it's transitory. Not only has Mercury been in retrograde motion, which has an adverse effect on all vehicles of communication, that's now gone direct, but there are other retrograde motion energies through the remainder of this month. And so it's now going to get a bit better than it's been, but it should be smoother sailing by the end of the month.
Whenever standing away from being involved.
Your own...
I've had one computer for over a year.
Well, in this sense, I'll say this, that your motivation will be clearer and stronger as September becomes October. You may or may not decide to turn that focused energy toward the computers, but you'll have it at your command. And I think you're going to make discoveries about yourself, discoveries that may already have been made but not fully acknowledged, that are going to clarify your relationship with these computers also within the month.
Thanks.
So a little patience and a willingness, invite clarity in without trying to think about it. Just whistle for it.
Can you give me some advice about how to proceed, how to deal with my friend Lori.
Well, don't give her too much sympathy, because it doesn't do her good. It makes her feel weaker. She may ask for it, but and she may not like, well, buck up, old girl, that sort of thing. But that's going to do her more good than sympathy would. I would say take a pretty matter-of-fact attitude. Don't get too emotionally involved, too close. Have some perspective and some distance there. That the cooler you are, the better you're going to function in this situation. Do you follow me?
Oh, yes. That's excellent.
In my new home and apartment, I'm meeting some lovely people, and I'm enjoying it all very much, but I'm having a terrible time remembering names. And I feel such a fool when they say, hello, Jeanette, and I say, hello, but I don't remember whether you're Dorothy or Barbara, and I met you just yesterday. Am I doing anything?
No, it's quite natural. You're meeting a number of people for the first time, and it's you see, you're exaggerating this. When you see them again, you say, oh dear, I can't think of the name, and you say, I'm meeting so many people now that I'm having trouble aligning the name with the face. And so, please, forgive me if I keep asking you what your name is. You've made an impression on me, but I haven't locked in the name of the face yet. People really understand, because almost everybody forgets people's names. It's almost a universal, unless you've taken some sort of a course, and in which I think that's almost more obnoxious than asking people what their name is, to constantly repeat it. And that's...
I've tried those tricks of remembering something, circle with it.
Yeah, sort of, right, hook it on to some memory peg.
And it never has.
I'm saying don't hesitate to say your name has quite fled me, and it'll be fine. If that's after you've known them 6 months, it's still happening, then some of them may get a little insulted, but allow yourself the transition. Again, the analogy of the child. Don't blame the baby.
Plautus, could you speak a little bit about this area, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and it as a place during this period of transformation?
Yes. I've been asked that question for a number of years now. This is the body of the earth is different from place to place. It's intersections of energies, and so every place on the face of the earth has its own characteristics. Some of them unique, some of them shared. There are hot spots on the earth. There are spots where the intersections of energies will accomplish certain kinds of goals, some of them very homely goals. In one place, you're going to find a whole lot of really good cooks. And it's not simply because all the good cooks decided to move there, but because good cooking is a part of the expression of the energy of the earth at that point. In Minnesota, in Minneapolis, there's an intersection of energy that is very good for awakening. It's been a hotbed of the so-called New Age movement. It's a good place to come for transformation, and that's also expressed by what is the joke? The land of 10,000 treatment centers, and but that's an expression of this energy here that is an energy of healing and renewal. So, is that what you had in mind?
Where does the line exactly run? Is a lot of it like through South Minneapolis?
Now you're talking of the ley lines?
Yeah, or whatever. Yeah, whatever you're talking about.
Well, we're talking about a variety of things that come generally at the heading of energy. Well, that's interesting. Is there a focal point here in the city?
Said once too that there are a lot of diva spirits around Lake Leals, or water.
Yes. People assign different names to phenomena that are independent of names. The diva spirits Yes, well, wherever there's a lot of water, like there is here, you're going to find that, particularly moving water. And so there's really more of that energy connected with the rivers than with the lakes. But diva spirits, nature spirits, forest spirits, a lot of that, yes.
Is there a different way of characterizing, I mean, in general, St. Paul and Minneapolis? The energies?
Oh, yes. Well, look at them. You go across the river and you'll feel the difference. You'll see the difference. They're very different cities, and that's not by accident. That's certainly it's partly to do with the people who settled there, but the people who settled there because of the energy. It was agreeable to them and expressed them. Yes, there's a great difference. There's a gentler quality to St. Paul. I'd say it's a better place to retire in. And not simply in humorous reference to the lack of activity, but because it is a calmer, gentler energy. And if one of the outcomes of that is no nightlife, because everybody's happy to stay home. It's also more closely bonded to Native American energy. And that, I think, you feel also in those environs. It is more traditional in its energy. On the Minneapolis side, there are what I would perhaps describe as little whirlpools and eddies and so forth that encourage a lot of change and adaptation and development, and that is partly responsible for the fact that buildings are not allowed to get old in Minneapolis. They are torn down and replaced because this is an area that encourages revolutionary change.
Plautus, could you say something about the next direction that I should look for work?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the end.
The next direction that I should look for work.
Well, first I'm going to respond in a way that may sound humorous, and I would say east. I know that's not precisely what you meant, but there is also in the east now. East. I don't think it's eastern United States. I think it's here, but. Apparently east of where you are. All right, that's one thing that just popped in. What you do needs to have more change in it, more variety in it. You can't be in the lockstep, not too much routine. Be more specific, and I'll try to answer more specifically.
It's hard to be specific. I feel so wide open. That's part of the question.
Well, that's a good way to feel. But as you doubtless aware, it's hard to narrow down the field that way.
Right. I've been thinking that I need to go in the direction of healing, but I don't see myself as a professional yet. And
this is a time of preparation. When you are making these kinds of decisions, again, I will go back to the analogy of the fresh-born baby, that this is the time for learning and for you to enter into the study of and the experiencing of healing techniques. For all of you, I would say one of the gifts of the Spirit brings along, is the gift of healing. And you can, some of you, for many reasons, will choose to use that a lot, and others it won't in this time and space develop all that much. But it is there to be used if you choose. And but I would think more in terms of taking in rather than applying at this point.
okay, well, my question is about work with incomes. So
Yes.
that must be a different direction.
Yes, I don't think that that's ready yet. I think it's certainly a worthy objective, but the process is one of planting and not of harvesting.
Say about what direction I should be working for income.
Well, I'm not getting anything particularly strong, and I think it's really because you haven't made any inner choice. I will say that at this juncture, you don't have to look upon it too seriously as saying, well, I want to commit to something for the rest of my life. What you're going to be involved in is going to be transitional. Now, you do need to look at it as something that you will enjoy doing, and I think that's the most important of criteria for you. Is picture yourself doing this, 5 days a week or whatever, and say, well, could I find some joy in that while I'm developing other things? Because I don't think at this point your work is going to be the primary expression of your energy and your gifts. That's coming. So I'd say there really is a wide open vista there, and just this is really the time to trust instinct. Where you say, well, I don't really have anything in mind. All right, well, that's fine, because at the higher self level, you know what is appropriate to you. You may not know specifically or have chosen specifically, but if you open yourself to possibility, then synchronicity will enter the picture, and you will find what you're looking for before you know you're looking for it.
Plautus, can you say anything to me about Marge, who is a healer that I have met?
Well, she takes herself way too seriously. The gift of healing should not be a burden, and she's burdened by it. The gift of healing, yes, there are pitfalls. If you allow yourself to take responsibility for the outcome, and I think that's what she does, then you're on a deadly path because you're playing God. The gift of healing is the ability to allow a flow through you and to guide it and apply it. But it doesn't originate in you. There are many deeply in need of healing who will reject it, and reject it legitimately because they're not ready to be healed. She needs to stop taking the responsibility on herself and give the gift as a gift without taking responsibility for whether the person likes it or not. Let them return it. That's fine. The giving was in the giving. The joy was in the giving.
Do you know anything about the Lemurian energy that John talked about?
What about it?
Well, I was never real clear about it because I missed most of her lectures about it, but she was saying that was basically the energy of the life form that was here when the Atlantean energy arrived.
Well, it's utterly immaterial. And I guess I do mean to dismiss it quite abruptly, because the application is not of importance now. I've spoken at length about the Atlanteans, your immediate ancestors, and their importance and their reason for being, and I would rest on what I've already said regarding Atlantean civilization, and say only that that the Lemurian civilization, I don't mean to dismiss it because it's unimportant. I mean to dismiss it because it doesn't have any point now.
Okay, well, I guess I was curious because it seemed to fit with the forest energy that you were talking about earlier and some of that.
Yes, well, there's a deeply ingrained history within every human being and within the planet that comprises all of the influences and experiences of humanity in whatever form on this planet. But at certain points, it's appropriate to bring up certain kinds of history, certain things from the past, certain experiences from the past. But there's really nothing much to say about it.
I guess I was curious that she commented that we all have some of each of the energies within us.
Oh, that's true. And there's also Neanderthal energy in you, and Cro-Magnon energy in you. On the physical level, you are the heirs to all that have begat. Back to the apes. It was the Atlanteans, however, that put form and substance to your journey.
I've gotten reconnected with some cousins of mine, Phyllis and Melvin, and it seems loaded with all sorts of things, and maybe it'll just fizzle, but do you have any image about this relationship?
Well, I see Phyllis pretty strongly, more strongly than the other.
Well, I've avoided her and seen her as someone very troubled, and she's looking kind of better to me lately.
She's very powerful, and a lot of her power was mishandled.
Yeah.
And that rebounded upon herself and made her quite unpleasant for people to be with. She does seem to be in greater balance now. And has she been with this Melvin all along?
Yeah, but they've had a split recently, and then they came back together.
Well, I think there's a healing going on.
It seems like there is, and I'm real surprised, and she seems to be interested in me somehow.
Well, I say this to all of you. You're sending out signals all the time. And because you are different, and because others are changing also, and some others aren't, you're going to get different receptions from people you've known. There will be some that simply aren't going to want to be around you anymore. There are others who may have been at a distance who come closer to you now. The time of changing relationships, and renewed relationships, and ended relationships. So,
give me some idea on helping my right knee. I seem to have a problem with it that's developed in the last couple of weeks.
I think it's a purely mechanical thing, and it could be adjusted without major. In other words, it's not a symptom of something greater. It's, I think you twisted it, or something. You've done something to it. That there's a mechanical adjustment that can be done with relationship to knee and hip. So I'd say, well, go to a chiropractor.
So I want to ask you about hormone replacement therapy. I've been using that, and I've been told that that's not good for me, and that there's all this controversy. And can you see whether it's beneficial?
Yes, it's beneficial to you. Anything can be misused, and remember that you're in this polarized time, and there are people who are fighting tooth and nail against other people equally convinced of their truth. You have to rely only on yourself. The truth is not monolithic, and you will find what is appropriate to you. And I say in this case, this is appropriate to you, and very positive, and you feel it, and I give you this confirmation.
Paul, do you see this as a good time to start my private practice on weekends and evenings and nights?
Within a month or so. I'd give it 4 or 5 weeks for optimum time. I'd make that a pretty general statement. It doesn't mean you have to sit around twiddle your thumbs from now till then, but if you start it now, be patient and expect that some things may go slowly now that may go a bit more quickly with a little bit of wait.
When you moved to Raleigh, North Carolina a month ago to go to graduate school and take a teaching assistant position, and you liked school, but 2 weeks after he was there, a man was shot to death about 20 feet from his front door. I just appreciate any comments about that.
Yeah, so there's no intimate connection to him. What's his first name? There's no intimate connection with Kevin involved in that. The experience for him was sort of a reality bath, a recognition of, that's life in these United States right now, but it's not intended to frighten him or to be a warning. It's not an omen or anything like that. It doesn't mean that because he was physically proximate to this act of violence, that he is drawing violence to him. But that all of you are going to have this experience as the world becomes more violent. He's not in any more or less danger because of that than if it had never happened.
It's a great way to do
But I think, well, fine. Then it served a positive purpose.
I'd also just quickly ask, because of some exploration I was thinking of doing starting in November, I'm thinking of maybe trading my car for a van. Do you have any comments?
I think it's a good idea. It's a good idea. It's part of the acknowledgement of the interchange, that you change the furniture of your life, and that you think, well, this is going to make certain things easier, and also it's simply going to help you feel different. See what I mean? The identification with the vehicle, and it sort of represents the new stage. So I would support that.
My younger sister and I are just starting to develop a friendship, and can you talk about that? Do you see that as
Yes. Yes, I do. There's a lot of water under the bridge, and it's safely under the bridge and past. Now you can begin to relate as adults, and without a lot of the baggage that was present in the past. It's a fresh start. And it has to do, in this case, with the energy recognition of your own change. That now you are more approachable and more open to developing something, developing that particular friendship. So I would nurture it and encourage it. It's a natural, beneficial thing.
Plautus, do you have any insight to give me about work? I feel like I've been running the gauntlet for the last couple of months, and I've been improving my job performance tremendously, I think, but it seems like it keeps getting harder, and that there's more challenges.
Yes.
And I know part of me wants all this challenge, but this
But
last
part
week,
of you wants a break from it,
I'm
too.
aware that I've been just really stressing myself out. Like,
There's going to be...
and a new manager, I'll be working with, I'm assistant manager where I'm working right now. A new manager is going to be coming in about, I would say about 3 weeks. So I'll be working with the present manager, who is really, in fact, he admitted it to me this last week, that he's been too tough on me. And that part of the reason why he's been too tough on me is that the district manager has wanted me out of that position. I think basically she wanted him to fire me. But he told, and she had him do this with another assistant manager at another bookstore, and I think he had some crisis of conscience, whatever you say, that I think he told her that he didn't want to do that again. So he's been really just wielding the whip with me a lot. Well, I've been getting better. I mean, it's been synchronous with my desire to take the job more seriously. And I'm wondering if, and then the next thing that happened was he wasn't sure whether or not he could give me a satisfactory performance review. Well, I feel like with all the improvements I made that it's almost like I'm very good rather than a little bit better than satisfactory. So anyway, we had a long conversation, and what came out of that was that he said he would give me a satisfactory on my performance review. I guess after what I told him. But I'm just wondering, I don't know what you see the future holds for me, and is my position at all in jeopardy? And is there any way, because now this new manager who's going to be coming in, he's going to be fed the same kind of stuff from the district manager that JT was fed from her, probably. So what do I need to concern myself with?
The work that you're doing and the challenges that you're facing have to do with pleasing yourself and being proud of yourself.
Yeah, right.
And that's really independent of this district manager and whatever managers she may try to work through. Right. You are setting your own standards, and you're moving to within sight of those standards. And this is the key. It doesn't matter. The rest of it doesn't matter. I think that you're going to be here and continue to grow in it. There's a chance in November of your switching jobs, there's a fork there.
Within the B. Dalton corporate
Yeah, I think
system?
so. I think so.
Or going outside.
It doesn't look like a... Well, I don't know. I shouldn't say that because I don't want you to look away and think that it's not there. It's not that clear. But it does appear that a fork opens, an opportunity opens in November, and that you'll make your decision then based upon how you feel then.
Would it be for a comparable position or something more promotion? It wouldn't be for a lower position?
No.
Good.
No. Perhaps a bigger fish in a smaller pond.
Is there any way, would it be helpful at all for JT, the manager, to communicate to Beth the ways that I have changed so radically?
Ask him to.
Well, I did, and what he said, was that she's very set in her ways, and once she forms an opinion, one way or another about someone, it's like an immovable force.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that's something you're not responsible for, so eliminate it from your considerations. It's all for you. You're doing this for you and not for her and not for fear of her. And what you are doing is going to pay off in benefits. So try not to look too far ahead. I think you've done well in taking care of the now. And if you continue to do that, then you never have to look far ahead.
Looking more immediately ahead, what kind of a relationship do you see Dan and me having, the new manager? Dan Wold.
Well, I think it's going to be a little wary at first. It doesn't look like you rush into each other's arms, so it's a proving yourself process all over again. But not as threatening this time.
Not as threatening?
To you. If only because you've had some experience at it now, and you know you can do it and are doing it.
But he also seems like he would be less of an abrasive person to work with.
He is that, but he's cool. He's a cool person, and he'll look and analyze and take his time making up his mind. And that's, I think, to your advantage ultimately, that characteristic. So I'm going to draw this reading to a close and thank you all for your attention and bid you Godspeed as this Labor Day ends and your own labor of love begins.
Thank you.